Does this seem a bit odd to you that our good news of Jesus Christ for this morning doesn't actually have Jesus in it? Nor does it have anything that sounds like good news? How odd that just a moment ago we said the gospel of the Lord, the good news of our Lord, and we said, praise to you, O Christ, and Jesus didn't bother to even show up in it. Instead, we have a drunken banquet, an inappropriate promise, a bloody platter, lives destroyed, John buried. Well, part of him anyway. But, maybe this is the week that our good news doesn't need to be good here. And maybe this is a good week that our good news can not have Jesus in it because it's been a pretty good week. I mean, this might be the week that we could comfortably say, it's okay, Jesus, we got it. We're all right now. I mean, look at what the things that we've been enjoying. We've got the World Cup that's starting in about 10 minutes or so, with one of the second smallest countries to be in the final. And all of the pageantry and the excitement and the beauty of the beautiful game there. We've got Hurricanes Beryl and Chris, who this week and last, who decided to downgrade themselves through tropical storm to whatever's below tropical storm, really angry thunderstorm, I think is what's below that. And we have this remarkable news that Ethiopia and Eritrea have declared peace. How often do we get to hear that, right? They've declared peace, bringing to an end, at least formally, 20 years plus of conflict. And then there's that story that's kept us all riveted, right? Those soccer kids, those boys over in Thailand, that daring rescue, astonishing bravery. And they came and were safe. So we've had some good news. We're good, right? Maybe this is the week that we can say, it's okay, Jesus. We got it. We'll muddle along without you. We're in good shape. We've got our good news for today. It is a funny story, though, isn't it? It's an odd little story for us to say is good news because it's one of the longest that Mark writes, and it doesn't have Jesus in it. Just that his name has gotten known, and it causes Herod to have this flashback. Herod, the bloodthirsty, tyrant, puppet king of the area, he's heard that Jesus is sending disciples. And these disciples are going out into all the villages, out in the hinterlands, out where ordinary folks live. And they've been doing something extraordinary, something astonishing, something that's riveting and gets his attention. They have been living and acting as though God is real. Can you imagine? As though God is in charge, and as though God sees the world and sees people differently than Herod does. They have been coming out and proclaiming and providing abundant life for all, abundant life even for the ignored people, the ones who don't deserve it, the ones who are overlooked on purpose by society. They've been demonstrating in lives and actions that God is the one who is in control, and God has a different vision for the healing and health of the world. So of course Herod is going to hear about this. Herod likes being in charge, and they seem to think God is. And so Herod hears of it. The disciples are out doing something that's just not going to be acceptable. And he remembers, he says, oh, I think this is payback. I think this is because I beheaded John. Now you remember John. He's the one with the locusts and the honey and the scratchy clothes and the leather belt, who was out there in the wilderness. He was the one who was proclaiming and preparing the way. He was the one that was baptizing out there and proclaiming the reign of God, calling people to a life of change, to change their hearts and turn to God who cares about them, even ordinary little ignored people. You remember John, he was also the one who had the temerity to tell the truth to Herod. Herod, who wanted his brother's wife, Herodias. And Herod, who had the power to make it happen. Herod, who married her, and John said, no, that's ick. Don't do that. That's not allowed. And Herod did not like this, and neither did Herodias, who really liked living in the palace after all. And she liked all the things that go with living in the palace, the big banquets and the cool clothes. And so she said, take care of John. And so Herod had him arrested and stuck him in a cell and liked him there. He liked having him there because he could go down and see his little pet, and he could hear him talk about God, talk about things. He was interested and intrigued and kind of perplexed. It was odd listening to him because he sure had a different perspective on the world than what Herod found in the palace. But he liked him. Did you catch that? Herod liked John. He protected him. He enjoyed going to talk to him. But Herod at heart is bloodthirsty and cruel. And even though at that point we might think, and justifiably think, that things are going well, he's protecting John, he's listening to John, maybe there's going to be a change in Herod because of John. There's this banquet, a big to-do in the palace. And everybody is there. And there's entertainment, and for the entertainment, Herodias' daughter comes and dances. Now she's probably 12. And she comes and dances, and it's beautiful, and it is wonderful. And everybody loves it. And Herod, feeling expansive and feeling powerful, makes this rash and crazy promise. I'll give you anything you ask for. Even half my kingdom. He's feeling very proud of himself, very powerful. Even half my kingdom. Just name it. But look at who surrounds Herod. There's Herodias. And she's got a grudge. And so when the daughter goes to Herodias and says, Mom, what should I ask for? This is her chance. And the little girl takes Mom's suggestion and then one-ups it. Not just John's head, but put it on a silver platter with one of those little silver dome things on it. Make sure it's nice and neatly presentable. But when you open that up, what kind of dreams is that little girl going to have that night? Think about how many lives are being damaged here. It's funny, isn't it? For a lot of this story, we might think this is good news, that things are going well. We might be excited that Herod is listening to John. Maybe there's going to be a change. Maybe Herod is going to hear about God. Maybe John is having this chance to speak in the palace, and maybe this is how things are going to change. Maybe Herod will have that change of heart, and he'll turn to the schools and say, you must teach the 10 Commandments now, and you must have prayer in the schools, and all of these things. We might think that this is going well, except that it's Herod. And Herod is Herod. And power is power. And politics is politics. And as people of God, we know better than to put our hope there, don't we? Because our hope is not placed in the things of the world. Our hope doesn't sit with Herod, because to cozy up to Herod has a terrible, terrible price. Our hope isn't even in the palace. As people of God, our hope is outside the capital, out in the hinterlands, out up in Galilee, where there's this wandering rabbi. Somebody living without a home, without a name, who, when his disciples come back and share with him that people are listening and God is doing something amazing in the world, God has allowed them to be part of the healing of the world, he invites them to come with him out where it's quiet. But the people hear and they flock and they follow. 15,000 people following him out into the wilderness, out where you're not supposed to be. And there they are gathered around him in 50s and 100s, sitting down on green grass out there in the wilderness watching. Watching as that little figure, that rabbi way down there, is looking around at them, talking to his friends, his disciples, who are gesturing, and he's pointing, and they're wondering. And way down there, they watch as they bring him lunch for a couple of them. And they watch as he takes bread, he looks up at heaven, and he prays over it, and he breaks that bread and hands it to the disciples. And he takes the fish that a couple of them have brought, and same thing, looks up, prays, and hands them. And there is enough for all. Our hope is in that banquet, isn't it? Because where Jesus is, there is abundant life for all. For the lost and the forgotten, the ordinary and the overlooked, where Jesus is, there is our